I am B. Ruby Rich. I am a writer, a critic, a curator, an ex-professor, and I am here at the Queer Sicilia Film Festival because of receiving this wonderful award and because of contributing to the catalog and hopefully to the future of the festival too. I'm happy to know that this article that I wrote 30 years ago is having an influence now on this festival and other festivals, and that you find it useful to have theoretical work articulated in this way. And I agree that there's always the possibility, the potential for theoretical work to have an impact in the world. Often it doesn't. It always has an impact in the academy, but in the world itself, not always so much. And when I coined the term New Queer Cinema back in 1992, I had no idea it would still be around now. But, you know, it wasn't only that it was a theoretical concept, it's also that the phrase became a marketing device that helped to get attention for the films I was talking about, and then was used to get attention for many other films over the years. Maybe not all of which I would have supported, but it became very, very useful. I used to joke, though, that the only people who were angrier with me than the ones I left out of the article were the ones that I included in the article, because some of them felt very typecast, very locked into a category. And as we know, to be labeled a queer filmmaker or a lesbian filmmaker or a feminist filmmaker is not always an advantage when people are going out to raise money or when people are going out trying to get the imaginary mass audience, which, by the way, most art films don't get anyway. But I think that this phrase, for a period of time, allowed this work to attract an audience. And therefore, it allowed these films to be picked up by distributors, and it allowed these filmmakers to get financing for their next films. Greg Araki used to say, "Why should I mind being in this category? It gave me my career." Not everybody felt that way, but many people who started out there have gone on to wonderful careers in other areas. So I think it was a wonderful launching pad. For some people, perhaps it became a little bit of a prison, but I think for most people, they broke out of jail and have done really wonderful work. And it took me a while to figure out a name and a category. I was writing articles throughout that time. I started out calling it the Gay 90s, which is a terrible title, but eventually I came around. I think the Village Voice article was called A Gay Sensibility. And then by the time I landed in London and at Sight and Sound, it was the New Queer Cinema, and that was the key. That's what made it all happen. Well, I wrote about Mark Rappaport's work in the 70s when I was a curator at the Film Center at the Art Institute of Chicago, which today is the Gene Siskel Film Center. And I was writing for the Chicago Reader, and I was writing program notes for the Art Institute screenings. And that was where I learned to become a critic. And that was where I first saw Mark's films. And at that time, I was very embedded in the avant-garde. I loved the discovery of this cinema, and I loved the discoveries that this cinema was making. And for me, Mark's work was very important, like Yvonne Rainer's work at that time, for bringing narrative into avant-garde film. The 1970s was also when I first met Chantal Akerman. I brought her to Chicago in 1976, and I did an interview with her that my friends recorded on a black and white Portapak, which was the video technology of that moment. And it's really wonderful that this is now in circulation. You can see a trailer online at the Video Data Bank. And I was able to transcribe it and publish this interview in Film Quarterly on the first anniversary of her death, when we did an entire special dossier on her work. Well, now that I spend a lot of my time in Paris, I'm really interested to start seeing more European film. I don't know enough about European queer cinema. I know some things, but when I wrote that article, it was very much Anglo-American, US and England, and that I think was true for that moment, but maybe already it was a distortion. A year or two after, I was invited to a conference in Casarsa on the legacy of Pasolini. I talked about Pasolini as an inspiration for a new queer cinema, because the first generation of queer filmmakers, like Todd Haynes, like Derek Jarman, were great cinephiles, and they knew that work. So I'm interested now to see who are the major figures today. And I think that my proximity makes it more possible for me to begin to know this cinema and hopefully to write about it.